Hello, you guys. This is Sievers here, creator of Pilates Encyclopedia, and I'm here with Gail Giovanniello from Mind Your Body in New York City. Hi, Gail. How are you doing?
Hi, Mara. I'm great. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you.
Nice to
We're
see you.
likewise. Beautiful flowers there in the background.
Thank you. I set it up just for you and
Ah,
our audience.
exactly. Nice. So we're here today to just have an honest conversation about what it's like to be a Pilates teacher.
Wonderful. One of my favorite topics.
Hmm. Yay. So why don't we just start by tell us about you. Like, how long have you been teaching? Where are you teaching? What do you offer at your studio in terms of privates, classes, any niche that you have, and so on and so forth?
Okay. Well, it's a fun story of how I actually started teaching Pilates. I was a dancer, working in a company in Atlanta, Georgia, actually. I'm from New York, but I went there to work. And then when I came back, I couldn't get a waitressing job. So body toning studio after gym after YMCA led me into a Pilates studio, a friend of a friend. And at this studio, she was training mostly dancer types, yoga types, to teach Pilates. And she did all the training right there. And my job was basically to take Pilates with her and to assist her in her teaching. And very soon after I did, I mean, I stayed with her for 2 years, but it feels like a short time as an inexperienced instructor. I started my own business. One main reason was because I didn't like the way she was treating me. I was very young at the time, and it was really sad to me. So I thought if someone like that could open a business and she was so successful, be very successful, I can certainly do it and offer other teachers or friends who would work with me a nice environment and really get into the work, kind of dig my teeth into the work of Pilates. And that's what I did. I started that in 1995, and it was when the trademark war of Pilates was going on, so you couldn't advertise it or anything. But luckily I met, through the fitness industry, somebody whose husband was a chiropractor on the Upper East Side in Manhattan, and he had a small Pilates studio in his practice, and that's where I went to teach a couple times a week for them. And after a while, he didn't want to keep that studio anymore. So he just washed his hands of it, even though I encouraged him that we could build a nice practice together and I could build the studio to, more than what it was. But he didn't want anything to do with it. So I took the clients and the equipment and I moved it into a dance studio, which was in operation at night but not during the day. So they allowed me to use it during the day. So I myself was still dancing at the time, but continued to teach. I felt if I can teach from 6 a.m. to noon every day and spend the rest of the day dancing, I was doing what I wanted to do. So I did that until I got my space, which I'm still in. And I got that space in the year 2000. And it was a move up because I was able to put every piece of equipment. So I had a Cadillac, a reformer, a chair, a barrel, just about one of everything, a little sitting area, a little desk area. And I started building the business that way.
So you've been in the same space for 20 years?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Woo!
I know. So this is interesting about this
Amazing.
conversation because we want to talk about Pilates teacher, being a teacher, but I'm also a business owner. And we can, expand on that in another time and in another interview or chat because, that's a whole thing in itself. But yeah, I mean, I've been in the same space. And now with COVID and everything that's going on, my landlord at that same space has been very patient, not patient, but giving. He's, cut a deal with me. He's trying to help me stay in the space during these hard times. So
Yeah, great.
that's been a blessing for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm really happy to hear that. And in terms of talking about being a Pilates teacher, like the business of being a Pilates teacher, I don't mind if we interconnect this conversation in some form or another, because I think that's the reality that most Pilates teachers are going to face. Not everybody's going to open their own studio, but even if you don't open your studio and you're hired by a studio, you're still sort of your own business. You still have to make sure that your students come back to you. You still, have to, word of mouth is the best marketing and stuff like that. So it's not like you can shed all the responsibility in business wise as a teacher. I think that's the reality that everybody has to face when they start a career like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I learned kind of the business of running the studio as it expanded. And every year I felt I learned a little bit more. But yeah, the teachers are a really important part of the studio. And, if I wouldn't do anything different, I started with no like administrative staff. So that the teacher, I felt if I was doing a 50-50 with the instructors, it was good for both of us. However, it's really a high percentage. So unfortunately, I know a lot of Pilates teachers out there, they don't like what they get paid and they don't like how many hours they have to work. But the honest truth of it is it's really about 30+%,
Yep.
not 50-50. That was way too generous of me. And I learned that after I built a staff of administrative team and instructors. And, there are a lot of taxes that go along with that and business expenses. And people think there's zero overhead, but that is not true. And so I've really created like jobs for people. My instructors have been working for me for a lot of years, and they get paid time off, and it's like a real job. They may have other jobs and work a little bit on their own, but they work for me significant amount, and we work on client retention together. That's a together thing. I don't come out of the picture 100%, but the instructor is a big part of the client retention.
I love that. I mean, I love that. First of all, I agree to everything you're saying. I love the emphasis on the collaboration, because that's I find that is so important. And again, most teachers who start don't see that. Just like you said, most teachers think, they should earn more, they should get paid more. They just see the number that the studio takes in from the client, and they think that should all go to them, but they don't see that how much rent costs and how much the equipment costs and any administrative tasks, like you say. So there's a huge overhead, and the more we talk about this, the more accepted hopefully it will be. And because what happens is if a teacher is unhappy or they think they can do better on their own, then they're just going to open another space, and then it sort of turns into competition instead of collaboration. And I think especially in those times that we're in right now, we need more collaboration, right? And more just share the space, and we can share overhead. That's such a weight off of everyone's shoulder.
Well, there are a lot of points that go along with that, because I have a friend, for instance, that had to take the work away from his instructors and work independently and take most of the clients himself. So that could happen. But one of the positive notes on the way I run my business is that my teachers have worked all through COVID. We've turned into Zoom and added some classes, and nobody's out of work. A couple of people because of circumstances, but it could go either way. So I think there's a lot to be said to having a teaching job where you're paid maybe a little less than you want to be paid, However, is it enough work that's going to sustain you through the ups and downs of the climate of the world? And it's really important because in the end, you'll have a job. You know, if you're just an independent teacher with 10 or 15 clients that come every week, you know, those clients might go away or those clients might travel a lot. And you're always having to replenish them. When the studio setup that I have, I replenish them, the clients for the instructor
Yeah.
for the most part. And the other point I want to make quickly is when independent instructors are working independently, I talk a lot about how they're set up as a business and if they're set up properly. And I'm sure in today's climate right now, teachers are teaching, getting paid, and maybe not set up as a business properly. And I've come to crossroads with the state of New York on that topic, and I've learned my lesson. So, you know, what I hope for people going into independent businesses is that they will set themselves up as the state wants them to set up so that the taxes are being paid.
What do you mind explaining what you mean with being set up as a business?
Well, I don't know how, I'm obviously I'm a corporation, so my studio is Mind Your Body Incorporated. I'm incorporated. I hire instructors as employees. I pay all their unemployment insurance, all their Social Security. I pay full taxes. They're on payroll. And I'm sorry, what exactly was your question? The independent,
How the independent teacher has to set themselves up
how
as.
they have to, yeah. Well, it's different from state to state. So the best thing I could
But in New
say is
York, for
to,
instance.
in New York, you know, you just have to pay the unemployment and the Social Security. And I'm not really sure if I think it's safest to have like an LLC or
Right.
something independent of just yourself,
Yeah.
and to treat it like an entity. So to be your own entity and not just be an individual collecting money.
Like DBA, not just doing business as, but to actually form an LLC or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if one is going to really work independent, I think that's the best way to do it. And it doesn't cost anything more, but you know, you'll be on the radar of the city and the state, of course, but everybody has to pay taxes. And eventually, if you think about like a waitress, you know, eventually they're going to want to see where that tip money is coming from because they know you're making tip money. And if you're not claiming that tip money, you know, eventually it will catch up with people. I mean, it caught up with me for certain reasons. And I was happy actually, even though I had to pay back some money to the government because I wasn't paying taxes. I was treating my instructors as independent contractors, and the state fought me on that and said, no, they are not. These are employees. And it ended in their favor, but I was happy because now my business is set up. And yes, people do want to get paid more all the time. And I have a system where I increase their rate every other year. As I said, they get paid vacation time and sick time. And they have had jobs through Storm Sandy, through the COVID-19 pandemic, and a couple of other things, 9/11. I went to my studio thinking nobody would be there, and everybody showed up.
Oh, wow.
You know, they just wanted a place to be and not deal with it. So I'm kind of happy now with the way it's set up. And I know everybody can't do businesses and studios, but I do recommend that the independent instructors set themselves up to their liking, but in terms of how the state wants to see it. You know, we shouldn't just be making money and putting it in our bank account, basically.
Yeah, I mean, because you've been in business for such a long time, I guess you've been one of those people who has made all the mistakes so that we can learn, and when I had my studio, I set everybody up as an employee right away because I was like,
Smart.
I'm not gonna even though you can fight it, right? A lot of people say like, yeah, you can see it under this lens or under this lens, but there was really no disadvantage for me to set them up as employees other than the paperwork and stuff like that, right? And so I did that. But yeah, I did that. I was able
That's
to make
smart.
that decision because I've heard about it, and other people have been in the situation before. So thank you, but I'm sorry you had to go through that.
I know. If I had to do it over again, I would have done it the way you did it. And I think I was not doing it that way for the benefit of the instructor, because of course the instructor doesn't want the money taken out of the paycheck.
Right.
So I was really trying to support the instructor, but in the end, nobody's paying the taxes. I know they weren't paying their full taxes, and then I wasn't paying them.
Yeah.
And really, because they were working in my facility, with my clients for the Mind Your Body studio, that responsibility falls on me, not them.
Right. Yeah, I hear you.
But I got through it. That was
Yes.
that was worse than any of the storms, but I got through it. And now I'm successfully getting through COVID, hopefully. Good. With the business.
How are things for you right now? Just briefly, are you teaching in studio at all, in person at all, or only virtually right now?
Yeah. So back to your first question, like when I expanded the space a little bit, I was able to put like towers, and I changed it to tower and reformers. So I was really one of the first studios to offer group equipment classes. What was I going to say? So now that we're back in the studio a little bit, I put a lot of classes on Zoom, of course, like everybody, right? Quick education on the Zoom. And then we're back in studio with small trios. So, building retention. I have clients that I've been working with for many years, some of them 20, 25 years. Wow. From other studios that I worked at. And so we're in studio a little bit, and we're still Zooming, which I think will go on for a while. But luckily, a lot of people followed us. And even those who are out of the city are with us through Zoom. And I even reconnected with some of my former clients that moved out of the city. One lady's in Connecticut, one lady is out in California. So that's the fun part of this, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I can believe that. There was something else I wanted to add to earlier, just real quick, because I think it's important to add to the topic of collaboration and how important that is. The other thing is so why it's a benefit to work in a team over just doing your own thing is, for instance, when I had my studio for the first 5 years, I didn't take any vacations because I was so afraid of if I'm not there, nobody's going to teach classes. I have to cancel everything, and I don't want to upset people's rhythms, and
Oh, yeah.
So you always take. You always take. I did that. I put students sort of in my business ahead of my own sort of mental well-being. That's fine, right? So when you're working at a studio, it's much easier, right, to get a sub. Either if you're sick or if you want to take time off, you can get a sub, right? Potentially better. And when you're by yourself, it's either nobody's teaching.
The client goes without even doing a session. So I'm very fortunate, and and I know it's from the efforts. I put so much effort in building a community within my studio as well, because that transfers into the clients. And so everybody's working. We really do work together. So yes, you can get a sub, and then you can kind of work when you want to, not work. I'm not saying that people can take whatever time off they need to, but I have a policy where each client gets introduced to at least 2 instructors right from the beginning, so that when their instructor goes away, they can request the other instructor, and we support each other's work. And we get to know each other's work. Mm-hmm. Everybody works a little differently. So that is a very good thing. And can go away with ease and enjoy some time off. And time off is so important. I mean, we're all teaching self-care and mind body. So, we are the leaders in that. We have to have a lot of self-care and time off to clear the head, to set yourself in motion, to have the energy to teach. It's like, you put that oxygen mask on yourself first, and then you help others.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I hear you. Thank you so much for mentioning that. So,
Yeah.
what is your favorite aspect of being a Pilates teacher?
Well, like all us teachers, I love Pilates. I love the whole system of it. I love that, 20 years, 50 years, people have been doing it. It's never going away. There's a statement I like to say, which actually a friend of mine said to me once, that Pilates became trendy, but it's not a trend. So instructors get to know that. And what I love the most about teaching is when the clients start feeling that. And then it's coming, because they're like, do you have any more time? Can I come a second time a week? Or they start doing 2 or 3 lessons, and you just know they'll be with you for a long time, because they kind of get it. They fell in love with Pilates like we all did. So that's one of my favorite things about teaching.
Absolutely. It has so many layers, right? That's so different in terms of Pilates. I think that's how Pilates is different from other forms of exercise, is with other forms of exercise, you learn something and you learn a little more, and then it repeats itself. But with Pilates, it's just, if you just dig deeper and you get rid of one more layer and one more layer, and it becomes this completely thorough, living thing. And that's what's amazing. You get surprised every day you go to the studio, something happens that has never happened before, or you learn something new. And it never gets I shouldn't say that. To be fully honest, I don't want to say it never gets boring. It does
Right.
get repetitive, because there's only so many exercises and stuff like that. And we tend to repeat those exercises a lot. That's every job, I think, has their
Yeah.
somehow. But still, there are still moments where, like, you get blown away by what it can do, right?
Yeah. Well, so my thought on that is that it's a movement technique, and not to scare people, and not to make people who've never done Pilates before feel like they can't touch it, because we all have human bodies, and all human bodies can do that movement. But it is a movement technique. And, I don't know. I mean, my dance training was in the Martha Graham technique. I've had, I'm trained in New York City. So Martha Graham, Jose Limon, Merce Cunningham, those are movement techniques. So it's repetitive work, practice over a lifetime, and it gets better and better. And then the layers start coming on. And, at the end, some, professional dancers are, Einstein said, the athletes of God. Okay.
I've not heard that.
Yeah, there's a poster with that quote. I love it. Dancers are the athletes of God. And we become advanced movers. So we don't all have to be that professional dancer or athlete, but it's being an advanced mover, and that transitions into how we move in everyday life.
Yes.
How we're getting up, how we're walking up the stairs, how you're walking.
Yeah.
So I think this is, for me, why it evolves constantly, day to day, in the studio and in our own lives and teaching.
That's awesome. So then, what is your least favorite aspect of being a Pilates teacher?
Okay, I thought about this question. She sent me the questions before.
Okay.
But I thought of it because I wanted to be careful not to answer as a studio owner, but as a Pilates teacher, because I am more in love with teaching Pilates than owning a studio. It's my passion. But the least favorite thing, Oh, okay. Is when people don't care about the technique so much or the specifics, and they want to just do a regular workout, which I always go to what people want to do. I'm not going to force anything down people's throats, but I kind of, I think, weave it in after a while. Like, this would be better if you can put a little more weight on your outside edge of your foot, or, or something like that. But that's my least favorite, when they're like, I don't really want to do that.
So for somebody who, let's say somebody who doesn't do Pilates or doesn't sort of know what we're talking about, would you say it's the extra layer of detail that they're not interested in, or what is it that those people don't want?
I think you said it. They don't want a lot of detail. And so I've made an agreement with myself that when somebody comes in with that kind of perspective, I say to myself that even bad Pilates is good Pilates. And I understand, even though only met Ramana once, but I think that she said that, like, even bad Pilates is good Pilates.
Okay.
So it was okay. Like, I'm okay with it. So
Yeah.
fine, you don't have to do it perfect, but we're moving, we're breathing. If people are enjoying it, how they are feeling, I think it's great. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not about perfection. It's just about the practice. It's about the journey. Maybe that person's journey is going to be slower or just a little bit different than, the dancer who comes in for an injury and then loves Pilates and keeps doing it. I mean, everybody's different. And now, happily, so many different people are doing Pilates. And I think it's great. And everybody's body is different. So as an instructor, you have to really train your eye and your mind to look at the body in front of your face for that moment.
That is that's one of the difficult parts when you learn Pilates, when you train to become a Pilates teacher. That's the hard part, to learn to see the differences and how each body moves differently and what's different about it, recognizing that, and then correcting it. But I think that's where it stays interesting once you've learned it. That's when it's actually interesting, because it's not cookie cutter, right? So but it lives, and it requires your intelligence. And that keeps you alert and interested in the job.
Agreed. Yeah. And like, I just started doing this little thing on Instagram because I also road cycle. And none of my friends who cycle do anything like this. And they think I'm like a contortionist and, this yoga master. And I'm like, oh God, you guys don't get it. So I started putting little stretches and exercises, Pilates for cyclists, and I tag them all. So now they have to, come onto their stomach, stretch up.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm challenging them to do some of these movements, and yeah, they'll look really different doing it, and it'll feel, I'm sure, really strange at first, but again, with a little practice, it'll feel better, look better, get better, and maybe they'll want more. I'm hoping.
The other thing that I wanted to add on to what you had said earlier about, when somebody's not ready for the level of detail, and how as long as they move, it's good, or, even bad Pilates is good Pilates. There's the other quote by Joseph Pilates, I believe, that goes, change, I just had it and now I forgot it. Change happens through movement, and movement heals. Right?
Yes, I love that.
So it's just, you
Yeah.
just got to move. It doesn't have to be perfect, because sometimes we can so micromanage and so over analyze and stuff movement, that you could potentially hurt a student, not hurt, but like, if they're trying too hard and their body's not ready for it, all that detailed instructions cannot be implemented, right? So, and then they might strain to try and make something happen that their body just is unable to do. So
Right.
it's not helpful either.
It's a great point, because what is a very important skill in teaching is learning how to break that down.
Mhm.
So let's just take a bridge, right? If you want somebody to do an articulating bridge where you roll up from the pelvis and roll down from the chest, that could be so foreign to somebody, which for
Mhm.
several weeks you may just do a tail curl
Yep. Yep.
and a release moving the pelvis. Just the idea of a pelvis is strange to some people. You know, looking at people even talk about the hips and the pubic bone. I was just giving my mom a little mini anatomy lesson because she hurt her back. So, just, and I'm like, yeah, mom, there are classes where I like touch my pubic bone and my coccyx at the same time. I mean, it's just strange, so to do a full bridge, that's where it initiates from. So, and no, it doesn't have to be a micro movement that way, but if you want to break down, say that to me, that flexion in the pelvis goes into short spinal. So with that exercise, you're lifting your own body weight. You have to learn how to curl your tailbone in a posterior curl to lift your own body weight. It's essentially the same movement. So the skill of learning how to break it down. And I like all the studios I've worked in and the mentors have all been under the lineage of Carola Trier. So she broke down from, she worked with Joseph Pilates. So she broke down the movement in her certain way. And when I first learned in that one first studio that I worked at, I used to think, wow, she modifies everything. But clients needed her to break down the movement. And now I work with Deborah Lesson, who worked with Carola. And, it's just breaking down the movement until you can do the full movement.
Mhm.
And to me, it's genius. I love it. I love teaching that too, because it gets people to move better.
Mhm. Mhm. Nice. Nice. Love it. So what if you were to hire a Pilates teacher, what are the most important skills that you're looking for in a teacher?
Okay, so I don't really look for the most skilled instructor because I feel that it's a process and it's great if somebody comes in and they have a lot of experience. I love it. But if they had less experience, that would be least important to me because I feel we can work together and train. I can see where they're at in their teaching, give them a lot of tips, and maybe even train. I found in the beginning, just to go off on a small tangent, that a lot of people get trained on the reformer. And then they come in, they have no idea how to use a tower or Cadillac. So I would be prepared to teach these instructors tower and Cadillac because I, obviously want them to use it. Um, I think personality, openness, a team spirit, somebody who wants to collaborate and work together, as you were talking about, somebody who's not, I say no divas, somebody who's not, really just wanting to be a superstar instructor, somebody who really loves the work and is willing to learn. I
Nice.
would say that's more important than, because it takes years to be seasoned.
Yeah. I think it's great that you say that because I think that can take the fear away from many a new instructor. Because I think there's this thing going on in Pilates where every instructor thinks if they only took one more course of continuing education and they only knew more about, name it, like scoliosis,
Oh,
any of those pathologies, if they only knew more about that, then they would be a great instructor. Everybody thinks that, and it's this perpetual kind of cycle. So I love that you say that because that's not what it's about. Yes,
no.
skills will help you, but as you say, it'll take a lifetime to build those skills. You just got to be open and curious and ask questions and ask for advice if you need it. But if you're a friendly person and you care for people, then you can be successful.
Yeah, and that reminds me of that quote that is, the more you learn, the more you
Yeah.
understand, the more you need to know,
The
like,
more you know, the more you know what you don't know.
yeah. And I mean,
Okay.
it's that life process where you're always learning. I mean, let's take pregnancy, for example. In Pilates training, everybody touches on pregnancy,
Mhm.
prenatal, postnatal. So I myself thought, yeah, I know enough about prenatal. And then one of my instructors focused her training on natal training.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, geez, we know nothing. I know nothing about this. I am giving her all the pregnant people because I don't want to damage anybody.
Right.
So there's so much in every topic. Scoliosis is a huge topic. I understood it a little bit too, but take another class, read another book, and you'll see that there's more and more. And the other thing is that the world is learning more and more about these things.
Mhm.
So the more people know, the more they're writing about it and educating about it. So there's always going to be more to learn. And
Yes.
not a specific thing, like even scoliosis, or every pregnant woman is different,
Mhm.
right? Every scoliosis is different.
Yes. Yes.
Every injury is different,
You're
you know?
so right about that. And I think that's why, so as part of my teacher training, that is what the most important thing for me is that a teacher, a new teacher learns how to just read a body, meaning they recognize what is actually happening in the body, because it's totally different to say what should be happening in a certain exercise and what is actually happening when a person does this exercise. And that to me is the most important skill, because it talks to what you just said. You can then recognize, okay, this person with stenosis has these issues, and this person with stenosis has totally other issues, even though they both happen to have stenosis, right? It's a totally different thing. This is a little pet peeve of mine too, is because you mentioned like cycling, and there are all these, from the marketing perspective, it's really smart, I agree, to do, let's say, classes, Pilates for cycling and Pilates for swimming, and but the reality is, if you have 5 cyclists next to each other, they're all completely different. They have
Yeah.
maybe a tiny tendency of, okay, they have this forward posture and they use the quads, and but the reality is that the differences might actually be more. There might be more differences between them than what they have in common. And so I always laugh about that, and I get over it, but but
Yeah,
that's the reality.
that's a really good point, and it brings me back to where and how I was trained in Pilates, because it was intended to be done privately, and then you went into semi-private. So yeah, I had the first Pilates reformer classes on the Upper East Side, but is it a great thing? I was like, okay, I'm going to put some blinders on for this so I can have a successful business. But you're right. I mean, people did private. So they would say, you're going to do the Mara stretch. That's what Mara does because of her back, right? So you go do the Mara stretch today. That's how teachers were back then.
Yeah.
Like you would get an exercise or a stretch with your name on it because that's what you needed to do
Yeah.
for what you were experiencing, whether it was an injury or, just particular to your body, and if you talk to other instructors, which I'm sure you will, who have some lineage training down, and you probably have yourself, that these teachers kind of made your workout specific. The thing is, they made you independent,
Yeah.
not dependent on your teacher, so that you can go on a mat for 10 minutes and do your exercises that were going to help you stay strong. So
Yes.
today I find a little bit, one of the least things I like is that clients are learning or not learning how to be independent.
Yes.
I
Yes.
really try to teach it. And I try to explain this to them, that it's important for you to get independent with your movement, so that I don't want to become obsolete to you, but I don't need to show you how to do this every single time, like learn how to do that, learn a little bit, become independent, and then we can actually get more done each session.
Yes, yes. I love that you say that, and I don't want to go down a whole rabbit hole, because that's my subject right there. I'm just going to throw it out there real quick, because you might not be aware. The studio that I used to own in New Hampshire, after 6 years, so just for the last 2 years that I owned it, I switched the complete studio to an open studio model. So everybody was independent. That's exactly it. Is like,
Well,
you got to know what you're doing. Yes. And I love that you just said that without me, cueing you to say anything like that, because that's it. And the last thing that you just said was like, because we can get more done. So when I then actually work with people, I get more done because they're owning the movement in a much deeper level than me constantly talking them through everything. And there's a process. I'm not asking somebody to remember everything from the first lesson, but ultimately that's what it has to be. I totally agree. So thank you.
I might go backwards someday. I've expanded. I'm not like a huge thing, but I have a pretty big business, and at some point I see myself going down the other direction, more towards what you're doing, like open studio.
And I get it that it's so hard sometimes to balance the financial side with the work side. I get that. So, there's no judgment or anything like that. And I know that a lot of people love the community aspect of group classes, and a lot of the people are not ready for the independence. So, that's the other thing too.
Yeah.
Students are not. So,
Right. And that's probably what I was saying earlier.
yeah. There's both always. I totally get
It's
that.
all fun. And it's just a matter, I think, of where you are as an instructor. What would you want? I love having people around. I love being around with a lot of people. So I love how I have the community aspect. But, give me 10 years and I may not want to be around so many people.
Right. Yes, yeah, you're right. There's a development in us too. Like I used to teach 1 million mat classes and 1 million group classes, and then I just craved working one-on-one with people, right? And so that's just what I decided to do.
Yeah, that'll change too. The teaching and where everybody is in their teaching will also change, and that will direct you as a teacher into the next level or journey, whatever you want to call it.
You're absolutely right. That's great. One more question. What do you think what do you wish you had known before you became a Pilates teacher?
Okay, this is a great question. And I think what I wish I had known is I just wish I had known about it a little more. I kind of went into it blindly. I didn't know the history. Like for instance, this is a great example actually. I was in this studio and this client who I still keep in touch with, who teaches, she would always come in and talk about Kathy Grant. Do you know Kathy Grant? Oh, she's amazing. Oh, no, I haven't. And, I was working with some great people, but I never met her. So I wish I had actually done more research, read about people. Not that there was a lot out there. I mean, today we have Instagram and everything that really wasn't out there in the late 80s when I started teaching, but I do wish I researched and even maybe talked to people a little bit more. Instead, I was like just ready to go. Obviously I started the business right away, and so instead of jumping in independently, I just wish I had sort of visited more spaces, read more, got to know the history more. And I think for me, I just would have had even more mentorship at an early age.
How would it have changed your experience? Would it have changed it? Or why do you think you wish you had known it?
It took me about 5 years. I always had great mentors. I loved them all, but I started with Kelly Kane and then I went to Deborah Lesson. So those are two amazing mentors right there. But it took me a long time to find the groove of the balance of what I needed as, somebody who really wants to move. And I was already a trained dancer. So I wanted to, do advanced work and stuff like that. I wanted to roll it fast kind of thing. But I just think I would have had a little more direction and a little more of the history about the technique, I'm sorry to call it a technique, but that's what I think it is. I just think it would have maybe um, uh, deepened my practice even sooner than it did.
Mhm. Mhm.
I feel very fortunate with the people I worked with because, again, they all just by chance had the same lineage. But
Mhm.
I think that I would have liked to have known the history a little sooner because, now those people aren't here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many of them are gone. And I thought, shoot, I wish I had known. I was right there doing
Mhm.
Pilates, but why didn't I know that person?
Yeah.
Or why didn't I get to know that person?
That's we're focused on one thing, and there's also only so much to absorb. And yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, but if somebody has that like shoot up mentality like I did, like I wanted to go from 0 to 20 right away, to maybe just sit where you are for a while, be a student,
Yeah.
enjoy that time. You are a student. The real master is Joseph Pilates. People who get trained right away and then want to call themselves master
Mm.
is a little bit false, because we have so much to learn
Yeah.
and just to be humble and just kind of stay for a while.
Yeah. Well, there's this, so as a ballpark, but there's this 10,000 hour rule, right? That Malcolm Gladwell came up with or researched in his book, Outliers. So it supposedly it takes 10,000 hours of practice something to become an expert. I hope
I
I'm
like
not,
that.
hope I'm not misquoting that. But and then when you think about it, about 10 years of teaching, I think that approximately comes to that. So then we can maybe start talking about an expert in Pilates.
Yeah, and you never know who you're going to meet, so stay open. I met Susanna Martin at a conference,
Mhm.
and she wrote the book on scoliosis. And when I met her, it really opened my world again. I knew this much about
Yeah.
scoliosis, teaching it like a real pro, but I met her, and then she taught her intensive at my studio, and it was just another layer. And for me, she was somebody who I wanted to latch onto because she's like another mentor.
Yeah.
So I keep in touch with her now, and it's just another go-to person for me. I don't think we could ever. And the funny thing about Suzanne is she still thinks of herself as the same way.
Hmm.
She's
Yeah.
still like a student herself, and
The
it's
more we know, the more we know what we don't know. That's exactly it.
exactly
Yeah.
and fun part of it. And
Yeah.
you know I think that you're probably training people to be on that kind of plane, on that journey, hopefully. But
That's I think it's more of a personality issue, but yeah, it's definitely good to, the reverse is the difficult part. Like the more you know, the more you know that you don't know. But so basically when you think you know it all, you should maybe think that maybe you don't. That's the thing, right? Because the reverse is hard to recognize. Because when you think you know it all, you don't think you might not, right? I hope
I
I'm
think
like,
that's when it gets boring.
yeah, that too.
That's when you're like, maybe I need to go take a class and freshen up. We've all been in that
Yeah.
kind of position, and keep the practice. Like my advice, if I had to give any instructor advice, is remain a student.
Yeah.
No matter how pro you become, just remain a student.
Yes, I totally agreed. Even just, I mean, taking classes is great, taking privates is great, and having an outside perspective, but at least keeping up your own practice, right? And because every
Yeah,
time you're on the machine,
practice, read,
yeah, yeah,
you know, see what's out there, see who's writing new books,
yeah. Catching up
what's
on our history with biographies.
yes, a little more history, right? Like, how did I let Kathy Grant, Ron Fletcher, I just let them slip by my life as I started my career.
Well, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk.
You're welcome. How fun.
It was.
Thank
So
you.
You're very welcome. For those of you who are interested or who to become a Pilates teacher, Gail and I partner in the Pilates Encyclopedia Teacher Training Program. So you can go check out pilatesencyclopedia.com/teacher- or -training. And Gail, how can people find you if they want to get in touch?
You can get in touch with me personally on Instagram. I am the Pilates Bomb. And my studio on most social media platforms, actually on all of them, is Mind Your Body NYC.
Awesome. So thank you so much, guys. Stay tuned for more of these conversations. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel here and click the notification bell so you get a notification when another video is up. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
That's stuff, Mara. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you'd like to see more cool information, head over to pilatesencyclopedia.com. I'll see you next time.